New home. New uniform. And a new intro. Hello and welcome to This is Public Broadcasting. I'm your host, Captain Rutlidge, and most of you out there might be familiar with that tune, no matter how badly played it was. Sunny days sweeping up, clouds away, on my way to where the air is sweet, etc., etc. Most anybody familiar with television is familiar with that theme tune, but they always ask in the theme tune, can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? Funny, of course, they never tell you the way there, but after 50 years, what does matter? Since 1969, Sesame Street has aired on PBS stations across the United States, teaching preschool-age children the skills necessary for grade school, like numbers, letters, shapes, and social skills. But seeing how this year marks the show's 50th anniversary, it only feels proper that we take a look at how exactly we got to Sesame Street. First, we need to trace back a few years to 1966, at, of all places, a dinner party in New York City. Lloyd Morissette, vice president of the New York Carnegie Corporation, was having dinner with Joan Gance Cooney and Louis Friedman of Channel 13, the public television station for New York. Friedman was adamant about the educational potential of television, and Morissette was searching for projects on children's cognitive development. Cooney, meanwhile, had produced a documentary concerning federally supported education for children. The three individuals eventually agreed to put together a project aimed at preschool education. As research, Cooney traveled across America, viewing television programs aimed at younger-age children. Most of what Cooney found was mindless cartoons and advertising gimmicks, with a few exceptions, of course. But with her findings, she wrote a report to Carnegie and approached the president of Channel 13 New York to start work on further research. However, Channel 13 was not interested, leading to Cooney, Friedman, and Morissette founding the Children's Television Workshop.
The workshop is an experimental project which will result in a daily hour-long television program for preschool children beginning next fall. Our program, which will be seen throughout the country, will be broadcast Monday through Fridays for 26 weeks. We're urging that the show be aired at 10 in the morning, when the preschooler is in control of the set, when mothers are doing housework, and when there is very little on television which competes for the young child's interest.
Cooney served as the head of the Children's Television Workshop, or CTW, with administration from the newly established National Educational Television. Carnegie donated $1 million, the Ford Foundation offered $250,000, and the Office of Education offered $4 million. The newly established Corporation for Public Broadcasting covered the rest of CTW's yearly expenses with another $1.5 million. So CTW had the money, now they just needed content. The new program needed to connect with inner-city children, since those areas had lower rates of readiness for school. They needed to keep the children's attention, similar to what mindless cartoons were doing. Joan Cooney brought up using puppets for the program, leading to her colleagues suggesting Washington area puppeteer Jim Henson.
Hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm taking a course in visual thinking. It teaches you how to visualize your thoughts. Watch. Cue. See that? Man, you're just a beginner. I'm an old hand at this stuff. Watch. Hey, a real watch.
If it's okay with you folks, I'd like to read an excerpt from David Stewart's PBS Companion. The staff told Cooney that they had talked with Henson and he was interested. There was no need for her to meet him. Soon thereafter, at a seminar at the Waldorf Hotel in New York, she watched as this bearded prophetic figure in sandals walked in and sat way at the back, ramrod straight, staring straight ahead with no expression on his face. She turned to an assistant and whispered, "How do we know that man back there is not going to kill us?" He replied, "Not likely. That's Jim Henson." Henson previously worked on Sam and Friends for the D.C. area, along with several primetime TV shows across the country. His Muppet Studios would create all the puppets for Sesame Street, and he himself would perform alongside his colleagues Frank Oz, Jerry Nelson, Richard Hunt, Dave Goelz, and Carol Spinney. Lots of other people have already talked about Henson's work on Sesame Street, but that was really only one part of the show. I'd like to put a little more focus on the animations and the live-action actors behind the series. Animation for the new series was created by former Captain Kangaroo producer Dave Connell. Series director John Stone, meanwhile, picked out the human cast for the series by hand. Matt Robinson would play Gordon, a local science teacher. Loretta Long would play Gordon's wife Susan. And Mr. Harold Hooper, the local grocer, would be played by veteran Broadway actor Will Lee. And music teacher Bob Johnson would be played by Bob McGrath. So, now they had the material, but what would they call this new TV show? Several names were thought up, and, well, here are just a few. Video Classroom. Fun Street. 123 Avenue B. You get the idea. The name Sesame Street was picked out because, well, in the words of Joan Cooney, it was the least bad. Sesame Street hit screens across America on November 10, 1969, and proved to be a massive success. Everybody behind the Children's Television Workshop, including Cooney, Friedman, and Morissette, was extremely elated. Children enjoyed Jim Henson's Muppets and the cartoons by Dave Connell, and eventually these two elements would play a larger role in series to follow. Testing performed by the Educational Testing Service showed that children were being better prepared for school both mentally and socially, despite age group or background. New versions of Sesame Street would soon air all over the world, from Latin America to China and even Russia and South America. The Children's Television Workshop, eventually renamed the Sesame Workshop, would go on to create further educational programming for children, such as the Electric Company to teach reading skills, Square One Television to teach math skills, and Dragon Tales to teach social skills. In the years that followed, actors would come and go. Matt Robinson would leave the show in 1971, being replaced by his character's current actor, Roscoe Orman, in 1974. Emilio Delgado joined the show as Mexican-American repairman Luis Rodriguez in 1971, alongside his future wife Maria, played by Sonia Manzano. Dave Connell would even bring in guest animators for the show, including the likes of Craig Bartlett, Will Vinton, Maurice Sendak, and even animation giants like Friz Freleng and the animators who would go on to create Pixar Animation Studios.
Surprise!
Some changes would prove extremely difficult, though. In 1983, Will Lee passed away, taking with him the character of Mr. Hooper. In one of TV's most touching scenes, Big Bird and the Sesame Street actors parted with her old friend.
Why, who's going to take care of the store? And who's going to make my birds eat milkshakes and tell me stories?
Big Bird, I'm going to take care of the store. Mr. Hooper, he left it to me. And I'll make you your milkshakes, and we'll all tell you stories, and we'll make sure you're okay.
Sure, we'll look after you.
Oh.
Then in 1990, Jim Henson passed away, leaving behind a vast swath of memorable characters and his young Muppeteers to fill in his shoes.
It's not that easy being green, having to spend the day the color of the leaves. I am green, and it'll do fine. It's beautiful, and I think it's what I want to be. Thank you, Kermit.
Dave Connell, too, would die of cancer in 1995. With each passing decade, Sesame Street managed to work in more pressing childhood issues into its storylines. The 2001 episode had the people of Sesame Street cleaning up after a strong hurricane, including repairing Big Bird's nest. Then, with the 9/11 terrorist attacks, an episode was shown with Elma witnessing a fire at Hooper's store.
I think all three of us could use a special lunch. Huh? How about it?
Sounds good to me. Elmo? Are you all right?
Elmo doesn't want to go back into Hooper's store.
Oh, hey, it's okay. It's okay. There's nothing to be afraid of. The chief said that the fire's out.
Elmo doesn't care, Alan. Elmo doesn't want to go back into Hooper's store ever again.
By the time the 2010s rolled around, there was one problem that shot up. You see, when Sesame Street started broadcasting back in 1969, President Lyndon Johnson had established his Great Society, including funding for what would become PBS. However, the administrations of George W. Bush and Barack Obama would see a significant decrease in government contribution to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, one of the major contributors to the Sesame Workshop. That's why, after 45 years of partnership with PBS, Sesame Street moved to HBO. Episodes would still air on PBS, but HBO would get primary broadcast rights.
Excuse Elmo. Elmo thinks that you two need to respect each other.
I'm willing to learn and listen if you are.
Will Miss Cersei try to listen and understand what Mr. Tyrion is saying?
I can try.
Oh, yay! Trying is a great way to start.
A toast to our new red friend.
Oh, yummy! Elmo loves toast! Yay!
After 50 years of programming, what does Sesame Street have to show for its work? Well, aside from the 189 Emmy Awards, multiple Peabody Awards, 3 Gemini Awards, and 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, quite a lot. When it first started airing in 1969, children from lower-income households couldn't expect to rise higher than their upper-class counterparts. However, thanks to the wonders of television and the dedication of Joan Cooney, Lloyd Morissette, and Louis Friedman, not to mention Jim Henson, Dave Connell, and everyone else behind the scenes, children could get the push needed to achieve excellence in school, then achieve excellence later on in life. So, alongside the likes of Mr. Rogers and Arthur, Sesame Street is without a doubt one of, if not the most important television program to grace the screens of PBS.
Oh, wow, that was a beautiful film. Could you roll that film just one more? Did you see that D film? That was a great film for D. I've never seen such a beautiful film before, and I'd love to see that film just one more time. Could you maybe roll that film just one more time? I mean, just one more time, if only I could do it.
Well, as a new segment for the show, I thought we ought to have a sort of shout-out to all the local PBS stations all across the nation, from Washington to Maine and Florida to California. So, I have with me the handy-dandy name-drawing hat. I'll put that one back in later. So, without further ado, let's see whose spotlight it is today. And believe it or not, we're going south to Texas to
KERA in Dallas.
KERA was established in Dallas-Fort Worth in 1958 under the leadership of the Dallas Independent School District. Starting in 1970, KERA became a PBS member station, serving northern and western Texas. Programming produced by KERA includes documentaries like JFK Breaking the News and the U.S.-Mexican War, talk shows like CEO and the Texas Debates, and the cultural program Frame of Mind. In 1974, the station was the first in the nation to broadcast episodes of Monty Python's Flying Circus, becoming an important part of the group's time on American shores. Notable members of the station included the late Jerry Haynes, otherwise known as Mr. Peppermint, and NewsHour anchor Jim Lehrer, who got his starts in the KERA newsroom. Today, KERA serves the fourth largest population area in the country, engaging 2.6 million viewers each week. If you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you can check out the station on Channel 14, with PBS Kids on the .2 channel, and Create on the .3 channel. Well, folks, that's all for this month. I hope to see you next month, and until next time, I'm Captain Rutlidge. Good day.
Sunny day, sweeping the clouds away. On my way to where the air is sweet. Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street?